The text message, arriving amidst the chaotic symphony of bath time, Emily, 6, screaming about shampoo in her eyes, and Tom, 8, splashing with reckless abandon, vibrated against the ceramic tile of the bathroom counter. I glanced at it, a quick, harried check before diving back into the soapy fray. It was from Sarah, my wife of 7 years. Dinner with Liam tonight. Don't wait up. Winky face. Liam. That was Liam from her pottery class. The guy with the perpetually smudged clay on his left cheek, the intensely blue eyes that lingered just a fraction too long when he looked at Sarah, the soft, almost deferential way he spoke to her about glazes and firing temperatures. I dismissed him as harmless, a slightly quirky, artsy type. Now, the name felt like a punch to the gut. My first reaction was a dizzying disbelief. A date? My Sarah? We'd been together since college, weathered countless storms together, late-night study sessions fueled by instant coffee, the financial anxieties of our early careers, the exhausting, exhilarating joy of raising 2 small children. Sure, our marriage had settled into a comfortable routine, a rhythm of workdays spent crunching numbers at my accounting firm, takeout Fridays, and the occasional half-hearted attempt at redecorating the spare room, always postponed due to lack of funds or creative differences. But a date? That felt fundamentally wrong. Like a glitch in the Matrix. Then came the anger, a hot, prickling sensation spreading from my chest, burning its way up my throat. I snatched the phone, water dripping from my elbows onto the screen, and furiously typed a reply. What the hell, Sarah? Is this some kind of sick joke? Her response arrived almost instantly, a testament to her dedication to multitasking, or perhaps a more unsettling possibility. Relax, babe. Just dinner. Don't be jealous. We're going to Bistro du Soleil. Tell the kids good night for me. Love you. Don't be jealous. The words echoed in my head, a cruel, dismissive taunt. Jealous? Of course, I was jealous. I was her husband. I loved her. Or at least I thought I did. Now, a knot of doubt tightened in my stomach, colder and harder than any stone I'd ever held. It felt like a physical weight pulling me down. I stared at the message, feeling a cold dread creep into my bones. Was this some elaborate prank, a bizarre attempt to inject some much-needed spice into our predictable lives? Or was it something else entirely? Something I couldn't even bring myself to contemplate, the thought a jagged shard of glass threatening to slice me open from the inside. My mind raced, replaying recent events, searching for clues I might have missed, like a detective piecing together a fragmented puzzle. Sarah had been distant lately, more preoccupied with her pottery, almost obsessed, and less engaged with family life. Late nights at the studio, vague, almost rehearsed excuses about needing creative space to escape the demands of motherhood and the soul-crushing monotony of housework, a certain secretive glint in her eyes when she received texts, quickly hidden behind a forced smile. All these little details, previously dismissed as insignificant quirks, personality traits I tolerated with a loving eye, now formed a disturbing, undeniable pattern. I had always prided myself on being a supportive husband, encouraging Sarah to pursue her passions, even when it meant sacrificing my own leisure time, our savings, or my sanity. Pottery was her creative outlet, her therapy, her escape from the mundane realities of motherhood and domesticity. I even helped her set up a small studio in the garage, lugging heavy bags of clay, enduring the constant dust that coated everything, my tools, my car, my lungs, and the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of her pottery wheel late into the night. I thought I was doing the right thing, nurturing her artistic spirit, giving her the space she needed to thrive. But had I inadvertently pushed her into the arms of another man? Had my well-meaning support become a form of neglect? The kids, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing inside me, were now finished with their baths, wrapped in their favorite superhero towels, their wet hair plastered to their foreheads. They were building a fort in the living room, draping blankets over furniture, their high-pitched laughter echoing through the house, a stark, almost mocking contrast to the suffocating silence and growing dread in my own mind. I forced a smile, trying to plaster it on my face, and joined them, trying to focus on their innocent joy, their uncomplicated love, but the image of Sarah laughing across a candlelit table with Liam, the soft glow highlighting her features, kept intruding, a relentless slideshow of betrayal. As the evening wore on, the suspense became unbearable, a tightening knot in my chest that constricted my breathing. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I tried watching TV, flipping aimlessly through channels, but the images blurred into meaningless shapes, the sounds a dissonant jumble. I tried reading, hoping to lose myself in a fictional world, but the words swam on the page, refusing to form coherent sentences. All I could think about was Sarah, about Liam, about the Bistro du Soleil, about the endless possibilities, each more terrifying than the last, unfolding in my absence. Around 11 p.m., the front door creaked open, the sound amplified by the oppressive silence of the house. I feigned sleep on the sofa, my breathing shallow and uneven, hoping to glean some clue from her demeanor, some hint of guilt, remorse, or even just a flicker of recognition that something was deeply wrong. Sarah tiptoed in, her face flushed, a faint smell of wine clinging to her clothes, mingled with a subtle, unfamiliar fragrance that clung to her like a second skin. She glanced at me, a strange, unreadable expression in her eyes, a disconcerting mix of apprehension and defiance, tenderness and guilt, all swirling together in a confusing, almost impenetrable fog. "Hey," she whispered, her voice low and cautious. "You still up?" I sat up, rubbing my eyes with the back of my hand, trying to appear groggy and disoriented. "Yeah, just dozed off." "How was dinner?" I asked, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. She hesitated, her gaze darting around the room, avoiding my eyes. She fiddled with the strap of her purse, her knuckles white. "It was fine," she said, her voice a little too high-pitched, a little too casual. "Just dinner. Liam's a nice guy. We talked about pottery mostly." "Mostly?" I pressed, unable to keep the suspicion, the venom, out of my voice. It dripped from every syllable. She sighed, a long, weary exhalation that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Look, I told you not to be jealous. It was just a friendly dinner. Don't make a big deal out of it." Her voice was sharp, defensive, a warning. I wanted to explode, to unleash the pent-up rage and fear that had been building inside me all evening, to confront her with my doubts and accusations, to demand the truth. But something held me back. A flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, a hint of sadness in her voice, the memory of our years together, the future we had planned, the children we had created. Maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe it really was just a friendly dinner. Maybe I was being paranoid, insecure, controlling. Maybe I was the one who was ruining our marriage. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and I knew, with a sickening certainty, that I wouldn't be able to shake it off easily. I needed answers. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The truth was a scalpel, but uncertainty was a slow poison. The next morning, after Sarah had left for work, a vague excuse about needing to finish a commission for a local gallery, I did something I never thought I would do. I violated the most sacred trust in our marriage. I checked her phone. It felt like a betrayal, a violation of her privacy, a descent into the darkest depths of my own insecurities. But I couldn't help myself. The need to know was overwhelming, a driving force that obliterated all moral boundaries. Her phone was password protected, but after several failed attempts, I guessed it. Our anniversary. A sick feeling of triumph washed over me, followed by an even stronger wave of shame. The text messages, carefully hidden beneath layers of innocuous conversations and mundane reminders, confirmed my worst fears. A series of intimate exchanges with Liam, filled with longing and affection, coded language and whispered secrets. Plans for secret rendezvous, stolen kisses in the pottery studio, whispered promises of a life together, free from the constraints of marriage and responsibility. It was all there, in black and white, a detailed chronicle of betrayal, a meticulous inventory of my failures. The pain was like a physical blow, a crushing weight that knocked the wind out of me, leaving me gasping for air. I stumbled back, clutching the phone to my chest, tears welling up in my eyes, blurring my vision. My world had shattered, splintering into a million jagged pieces. The woman I loved, the woman I had trusted, the woman I had built a life with, had betrayed me in the most devastating way possible, and I hadn't even seen it coming. I sank to the floor, the phone slipping from my numb fingers, landing with a soft thud on the carpet. The kids were at school, the house was silent, filled only with the echoes of my own broken heart. But inside me, a storm was raging, a tempest of grief, anger, and disbelief. What was I going to do? How could I ever trust Sarah again? How could I face her, knowing what I knew? How could I pretend that everything was normal when my world had just imploded? I had a decision to make, a choice that would define the rest of my life. Confront her with the evidence, risking a messy, acrimonious showdown? Seek couples counseling, clinging to the desperate hope of salvaging something from the wreckage? Or simply walk away, sever all ties, and start over, leaving behind everything I had ever known and loved? The choice was mine, and the weight of it felt crushing, suffocating. As I sat there, paralyzed by grief and confusion, one thing became crystal clear: my marriage would never be the same. The trust was irrevocably broken, the foundation had crumbled. Whether we could rebuild it, whether we even should rebuild it, or whether it was destined to collapse entirely, to be swept away by the tide of betrayal, remained to be seen. The uncertainty was agonizing, but I knew I couldn't stay in the dark forever, wallowing in self-pity and doubt. I had to face the truth, confront Sarah, and decide what kind of future I wanted for myself, for my children, for whatever remained of my shattered life. The road ahead would be long and difficult, filled with uncertainty and pain, but I had to find the courage to take the first step, to start the arduous journey towards healing. And that first step, I realized, was finding out everything. Every detail, every lie, every betrayal. I needed to understand what had happened, why it had happened, and what the consequences would be. I created a throwaway account on Reddit, seeking solace and advice in the anonymity of the internet. I posted my story to the Betrayal subreddit, hoping to find someone who understood what I was going through. My wife told me she's going on a date with another guy. I typed, my fingers trembling. I checked her phone and found incriminating texts. What do I do? I'm lost, confused, and heartbroken. The responses came flooding in, a tsunami of sympathy, anger, and unsolicited advice. Some urged me to confront Sarah immediately, to rip off the Band-Aid and demand answers. Others suggested gathering more evidence, documenting her activities, preparing for a potential legal battle. Still others recommended seeking therapy, focusing on self-care, and prioritizing my own well-being. One comment in particular resonated with me, cutting through the noise and offering a clear, pragmatic path forward. Document everything. Get proof. Consult with a lawyer before you confront her. Protect yourself, protect your kids. This is going to get ugly. That was it. That was the plan. I wouldn't act rashly, fueled by emotion. I would gather irrefutable evidence, consult with a seasoned divorce lawyer, and then confront Sarah in a calm, rational manner, armed with knowledge and prepared for the worst. I owed it to myself, to my children, and to the memory of the man I used to be, before my world was turned upside down. The following days were a blur of anxiety, sleepless nights, and clandestine activity. I installed a voice-activated recording app on my phone, hoping to capture a damaging conversation between Sarah and Liam. I contacted a local divorce lawyer, a formidable woman with a reputation for ruthlessness, who advised me on my rights and options, and warned me to prepare for a long and arduous legal battle. I started meticulously documenting everything: the text messages, the emails, the phone calls, the dates, the times, the locations. I became a private investigator in my own life, obsessed with uncovering the truth, with exposing the lies, with building an airtight case against my wife. The more evidence I gathered, the more certain I became that my marriage was over, beyond repair, irretrievably broken. The betrayal was too deep, the trust too shattered, the wounds too raw. I couldn't forgive Sarah, not in this lifetime, and I couldn't forget what she had done, the casual cruelty with which she had dismantled our life. Finally, after weeks of agonizing preparation, the day came when I was ready to confront her. I had all the evidence I needed, meticulously organized and documented. I had spoken with a lawyer, who had prepared me for every possible scenario. I had braced myself for the inevitable explosion, the accusations, the tears, the recriminations. I waited for her to come home from work, pacing back and forth in the living room, my heart pounding in my chest like a trapped bird. The kids were at a playdate, conveniently arranged by a friend who knew something was wrong. The house was eerily quiet, filled with a suffocating tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. When she finally walked through the door, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed, I could see the weight of her guilt etched onto her features, a mask of shame and apprehension. "We need to talk," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, almost detached. "I know everything." She didn't deny it. She didn't try to lie. She didn't even try to apologize. She simply looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation, and said, "I'm sorry." And that's where the real story began. The story of heartbreak and betrayal, of anger and resentment, of shattered dreams and broken promises. But also, the story of resilience and survival, of healing and forgiveness, of finding a new path forward in the wake of unimaginable loss. The initial confrontation was brutal, a maelstrom of accusations, tears, and recriminations. Sarah confessed everything, admitting to the affair with Liam, blaming my neglect, her own unhappiness, and a host of other contributing factors. I listened, numb and detached, documenting every word, every gesture, every tear. The divorce proceedings were messy and acrimonious, a long and drawn-out battle over assets, custody, and visitation rights. The children were caught in the crossfire, their lives upended by the fallout of our shattered marriage. They struggled to understand what was happening, their innocent hearts broken by the loss of their family unit. We eventually reached a settlement, a compromise that allowed us to co-parent the children while maintaining separate lives. It wasn't ideal, but it was the best we could do, given the circumstances. Liam disappeared from Sarah's life, a fleeting infatuation that had caused irreparable damage. "It was a mistake," she confessed one tearful evening years later, when we were finally able to speak to each other without animosity. A desperate attempt to feel something, anything. I regret it every single day. The years passed, each one bringing its own set of challenges and triumphs. The raw pain of the betrayal dulled to a persistent ache, a scar that would never fully heal. I focused on my career, immersing myself in my work, finding solace in the predictability of numbers. I dedicated myself to my children, attending their school events, coaching their soccer teams, reading them bedtime stories, and trying to be the best father I could be, even in the midst of my own grief and confusion. I even started dating again, cautiously, tentatively, dipping my toes back into the dating pool after years of enforced celibacy. I met some wonderful women, some kind and caring souls, but I could never fully commit, never fully trust, never fully let go of the pain of the past. One sunny afternoon, while picking up Tom from soccer practice, I saw Sarah. She was standing on the sidelines, watching him intently, her face softened by the afternoon sun, a small, genuine smile playing on her lips. She looked older, more weathered, but there was a quiet strength in her eyes, a sense of peace I had never seen before. Our eyes met, a fleeting moment of recognition, a shared history, a silent acknowledgement of the pain we had both endured. There was no anger, no resentment, no bitterness, just a quiet understanding, a shared sense of responsibility for the children we had brought into the world. We nodded, a simple gesture of respect, a fragile truce observed for the sake of our children. Later that evening, after tucking Tom into bed, I sat on the porch, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. Tom came out, wrapped in his blanket, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Dad," he said, his voice soft and hesitant, "are you happy?" I looked at him, my heart filled with love and gratitude. I thought about the pain of the past, the betrayal, the anger, the loss. But I also thought about the present, about my children, about the life I had rebuilt, brick by brick, stronger and more resilient than before. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes. "I'm getting there, buddy," I said, wrapping my arm around his shoulders. "I'm getting there." The betrayal had shattered my world, but it had also forced me to confront my own weaknesses, to learn to forgive, to prioritize what truly mattered in life. And maybe, just maybe, that's what life was all about. Not avoiding the cracks, but finding a way to build something beautiful, something meaningful, even with them. The laughter of my children, the quiet moments of connection, the slow, steady process of healing, the ability to find joy in the midst of sorrow, they were the bricks of my new life. And they were enough. They had to be.